Zappa is in a lot of ways in a class by himself. Okay, well, maybe we can go to our honorable mentions, and
Oh yeah, we
I'd
got
like
a
to.
lot of these.
Yeah, we do. I really want to start off with Brian Wilson, and maybe we'll go through this a little quickly because we've already
Yeah,
recorded quite a long segment here, session
yeah.
here. But "Good Vibrations" is the one Brian Wilson composition with the Beach Boys that I think really stands out as a quintessential psychedelic composition.
Hmm.
It is a psychedelic masterpiece. And then he did, as he went into his production past that into this Smile album. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you can call Smile a very psychedelic album, but Brian Wilson had his own kind of psychedelia. It was more based on the structure of the compositions, not so much with the noodling around with the sound effects and things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think with the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson, everything kind of revolved around like the vocal harmonies were like the main part of the song, and then all
Yeah.
the other instruments kind of revolved around the vocal harmonies,
What
which
what
is
Brian
not necessarily bad. It's just that's kind of that was kind of their style, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Beach Boys have so much going on and so many levels. The excellence of the vocals is unquestionable to anybody who's fair on that topic.
Oh yeah,
But the psychedelia, I think, from a song like "Good Vibrations" comes from the composition, from the structure, from the key changes, from the different segments that come in and out, the way it's all put together. That's where and also the theremin. Woo! I mean, that was a very
yeah,
good
right.
choice to get that vibe across.
Hmm.
So let's move on to I want to talk about Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues, and there's one particular song that stands out that he sings and he composed, which is Nights in White Satin. That is a some people think that is one of the quintessential right psychedelic compositions of the era.
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
I kind of think of their first album as being like the very first prog rock album, you know,
yeah, yeah.
Days of Future Past.
Hmm.
But they were kind of like in that transitional period between psychedelic rock and progressive rock.
That's
If
true.
you want to split hairs, they were definitely more psychedelic, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I feel like they were also progressive rock.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you could get in arguing about labels or whatever for
yeah.
all eternity,
Right.
and there are people who will actually do that too. But we
Yeah.
don't have to do that here and now.
Right. Well, I just mentioned the Nights in White Satin because it kind of I think it stands out as a song that's very much associated with the psychedelic era of music. Um,
Yeah.
and let's talk about Bernie Worrell. I think you have. I'd rather turn that one over to you because I think you have better understanding of his
Oh yeah.
contributions.
Yeah. I was just trying to think of people think of psychedelic musicians as being guitarists usually, so I was trying to think of some psychedelic keyboard players. And
Hmm.
so I thought of, for one example, I thought of Bernie Worrell from the Parliament and Funkadelic groups, which were led by George Clinton. And I'm not a big expert on that band, but I do know he played on one of my favorite Talking Heads albums, which was Speaking in Tongues.
Hmm.
He played some of the synthesizer on that, and he actually toured with the Talking Heads. And that particular album is one of my all-time favorite albums, and the whole thing is, even though it was released I think in 1982, but I think of that as being just a really psychedelic album. Because of the real kind of experimental synthesizers on there, the way it's actually the album is more keyboard and synth based than guitar based, and that turns off a lot of people I know, but that is just that was just right up my alley. I mean,
Hmm.
I wore that damn album out.
Well, it's a good example of psychedelia that extended way past the 1960s. That to show that the genre was still, alive and kicking even in the 80s, and
Right,
it
right.
still is today. And there's another example that we have, Andy Summers of the Police. And you wanted to talk about that. So, and again, his work with the Police is primarily in the 80s. So
Right,
how do you
right.
see Andy Summers as a psychedelic musician?
Oh, just to me, his playing style, and it's like he always approached his guitar solos and his guitar parts just from a real experimental mindset, like
Mhm.
just trying to just get some really odd sounding notes in there, or some really different sounding guitar sounds and stuff, but it was all very experimental. And to me, it was really psychedelic. So, like, for example, um, listen to Secret Journey off the Police's Ghost in the Machine album,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
those sounds you hear on that song are actually Andy Summers, playing guitar with like a whole lot of weird processing and stuff on it, but that's pretty mind bending. And like some of his solos, like the solo on Driven to Tears,
Mhm.
to me that's very psychedelic. Like
Yeah.
there were some psychedelic things going on in the 80s for sure, you
Yeah,
know.
they sure were. I wanted to make a mention to Stuart Copeland, the drummer for the Police. I always love the interplay between Copeland and Summers,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think I mean, if there is such a thing as psychedelic drumming, I don't know if that's what Stuart Copeland was going for, but it made a really nice interplay with what Andy Summers was doing, gave it a nice. You can't really talk. Sometimes you can't talk about these musicians without the people they were working with and the interplay between them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right, yeah. Yeah, Copeland was just a one of a kind drummer, you
he
know.
sure. Yeah,
He's
certainly.
he's up there in the top tier of
He is.
greatest drummers for sure.
Yeah, that's we could do an entire episode on Stuart Copeland for sure. But let's go to Beck. This is now I think we wanted to mention Beck honorably because he's maybe a more modern and recent example of psychedelia. This is also your area, Eric, if you want to talk.
Right, right. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. I love Beck. Yeah, and I just think his whole approach to songwriting and recording is just so interesting and experimental, and he incorporates so many different instruments and samples and just everything he can think of into his recordings, and
hmm
it's
hmm
just, to me, it's very reminiscent of like the psychedelic area, and I feel pretty sure that he was pretty heavily influenced by some of the psychedelic bands, and lyrically, he's amazing. He's just, he's one of my favorite artists, probably
hmm
from the 90s, but
You might even
yeah,
look at him as a psychedelic, as a revivalist, somebody who revived the psychedelic genre in his time and maybe
I
kind
think he
of brought
kind
it
of did.
back.
I think he took it and just added his own spin to it
Hmm
and turned it into something new, like
hmm
something that didn't even exist before.
hmm
But yeah, I wanted to get back in there because I, I think he's definitely an honorable mention.
Okay. Then we have a group that is it really a group or is it a pseudo group? The Dukes of Stratosphere, which is a name that I mean, it's kind of like the Beatles became Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And then is it XTC became Dukes of Stratosphere? And can you tell
Yeah,
us about the how that came about? And what was the time period again?
it was
The 80s, right?
yeah, it was around the mid '80s, I think, was when
hmm
they released their Dukes of Stratosphere albums.
hmm
Yeah, it's hard. It's one of those. It's kind of like Zappa. It's hard to tell what their intentions was. Like it sort of comes across as a parody of psychedelic music, but it completely works
Hmm.
on its own. If you just gave those albums to your friend and say, "Hey, check out this psychedelic band," they would probably love it, like
Yeah,
if they were into that type of music, you know.
yeah.
I'm not sure they would pick up on the like the parody aspect of it, but I love Dukes of Stratosphere, and I wish they would make a new album, or I
Mhm.
wish they had kept making albums, but all we have is just one album and one EP from the Dukes of Stratosphere. But
Well, Chips from
yeah,
the Chocolate Fireball is kind of a compilation album. It combines two albums into one. Uh,
yeah, it's
uh,
the album and the EP glued together
that's what it is. Yeah,
and reissued.
yeah,
Yeah, that's all we got from them. But I mean, XTC made a lot of great music too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you're just dying for more Deuce of Stratosphere, you can just check out all of XTC's music, I guess.
Hmm. Well, I wanted to just briefly comment on Dukes of Stratosphere. I think what Dukes of Stratosphere did in the 80s was really important. They kind of took an overview of the psychedelic era and they said, well, what if it's almost like it was an exercise in the imagination saying, what if we get in a time machine and go back to the 1960s? How would we play as a band? How would we blow everybody's minds? And I think that was maybe the mental exercise that they were going through. I think if Dukes of Stratosphere had actually come out with that stuff like in 1966 and 1967, they would have been huge. Um,
Yeah, for sure. For
yeah.
sure. I think they would.
Yeah, so it's an intriguing, question to ask yourselves, what would happen if you could have put them in a time machine. But and let's move on. You wanted to include Spanky and Our Gang and Sunshine Pop in there. I'm not, can't remember this. How does that song go?
Uh, yeah, they had a song called Lazy Day.
Oh yeah.
And they had some more song like there's this they are this kind of subgenre of 60s music which
Hmm.
is referred to as sunshine pop, and
Hmm.
they're probably Spanking Our Gang are probably considered like one of the prime examples of that type of music. Sunshine pop, it's just very kind of easy, just easy to listen to. It's not heavy at all. It's the lyrics are very happy and positive. When you listen to it, you just feel like you're kind of just floating along, just you
Hmm.
know, just like nothing bothering you, just like everything's happy. But there was a lot of bands like that, and
Hmm.
um, I just wanted to include Spanking Her Gang.
Yeah, yeah.
There, I know there's several other examples. I can't think of too many right now, but
What
you
was it?
had like,
The Cowsills,
oh yeah, there you go.
yeah.
That's one of the greatest examples.
Flowers in her hair, flowers
Yeah,
everywhere.
that's a great song. That's such a great song. And
I love a flower
you
girl.
had like the Association and bands like that.
Never my love.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
a great guitar lick. Dern, 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 dern.
I love all the Sunshine Pop. I'm just a huge fan of all that
Yeah,
stuff.
we needed to talk about that for sure. Well,
Yeah.
now, we let's not forget it's time to give our number one most psychedelic musician because we got on the honorable mentions for a while. But now we're going to tell you who our most psychedelic musician is, and you might have noticed who it is just through omission because we didn't talk about it. Drum roll, please. Uh, the most psychedelic musician of all time, according to the Panavox show, Panavox channel, is
Sid Barrett.
Yes, Sid Barrett. And Sid Barrett of the group
Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd. Yeah, so talking about Sid Barrett, if you know about the history of Pink Floyd, he was not with Pink Floyd that long. I think they started off in 1965 or 66,
Hmm.
somewhere in there when they had their first recording. I think it came out in late 1966, early 1967.
Oh, here's an interesting side note. Their original name was the Pink Floyd Sound,
The Pink Floyd sound.
and they got shortened to Pink Floyd.
Right. So this is a musician with Pink Floyd who had a very brief, I mean, he wasn't with Pink Floyd all that long at the beginning, but he was a founding member. And really, I guess it was early 1967, 1966, I think was when they were writing the compositions, and then into 1967 doing the recording. And then he very quickly fell apart. It's not clear what happened to him, but he became dysfunctional. He would go up on stage, even in 1967, he would be up on stage. They'd be doing a concert, and he would just be standing there without moving, without playing his guitar, just frozen like that. And so they kind of even knew that something was wrong, even at the very beginning. But before he was and then 1968, he had a couple of little tiny contributions here and there, and then he was just basically replaced by David Gilmour. But
Hmm.
but during that brief time that he was there, uh, Pink Floyd released Piper at the Gates of Dawn, their first album, and I mean that is totally dominated by Sid Barrett. I mean, I think he was behind every one of those compositions, right? I mean, he was essentially the creative leader of the band at that time.
I think Roger wrote a couple of those songs, and maybe Richard Wright might have contributed, co-written something. I don't exactly remember who wrote what. I know Roger had at least one song, like the Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk was one of Roger's compositions.
Uh,
But I think most of the other songs were Sid Barrett's.
yeah. And Flaming off the first album is an incredible composition. It is, I think, in many ways, very emblematic of the psychedelic movement. There were the singles, See Emily Play. Arnold Lane is an incredibly psychedelic composition. Arnold Lane. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. And the other thing, not only is that particular album and Sid Barrett's compositions, are they quintessentially psychedelic in every possible sense. Musical sound, I mean, Astronomy Domini is doing incredible things with the actual qualities of the instruments and the sounds, things like that. I don't think that they got into reverse tape loops, but there was other ways that he got into it. Compositionally, it was psychedelic. Sound effects were psychedelic. The lyrics were psychedelic. Sid Barrett as a person was psychedelic, and it was not like Donovan, where it was a kind of an artistic expression, kind of a conscious artistic expression. This is just who the guy was. I mean, he was like
Right.
he was the
Exactly.
real article, you know?
He was doing his own thing. Yeah. I
I
think
mean,
the interesting thing about the Sid Barrett days of Pink Floyd is like Sid would write these really quaint, sort of English sounding, sort of psychedelic pop songs, but then they would play live shows and it would just be like total improvisation. They wouldn't even play any of their pop songs. And at these live shows, it was just totally experimental. And, like I've seen footage of some, and Sid Barrett is like putting all kinds of like spacey delay effects on his guitar and stuff, and they're just going out there as far as they could, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So like he was a great songwriter, and also he was like a very experimental musician too, like in a live setting, you know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like I was a pretty big Pink Floyd fan when I was a teenager, but I never heard any of Sid Barrett's solo music, and I just recently heard the Madcap Laughs, his first solo album just a few years ago. And that album is amazing. I mean, I think that album is as good as any Pink Floyd album,
Yeah.
except maybe Dark Side of the Moon, maybe.
Well, the interesting thing about Madcap Laughs is it has almost a garage band feel to it. He had a minimal amount of studio support. He had a very limited amount of instrumentation and production there, and yet he just does it through the sheer force of his composition, through the vibe of the composition itself, his singing style. And so to attain that level of psychedelic intensity with the minimal amount of tools that he
Yeah,
did at that point is just a testament to the fact that he was the real article, that he was the embodiment of the genre in so many ways.
I
He
think
did,
so too.
yeah,
I
he
think
did.
so too.
Mm.
I wish he had kind of stayed more functional, so he could have recorded more music because he obviously had a really good, really talent for songwriting, you know. Like
My
I think those Madcap Laugh songs are even better than his Pink Floyd songs.
you can make a
And
case for that for sure.
and
Mm. Yeah.
if he had just stayed mentally more stable, I think he could have gone on and just done some really great music.
Hmm. Yep. And so for that, all these reasons and more, we're assigning Sid Barrett a 10 out of 10 on the psychedelic meter. Sid Barrett, we salute you. You are the epitome of the psychedelic experience. May God rest your soul in the psychedelic heaven, wherever your spirit may be dwelling. We love your music. And I just want to make a little anecdote to end this. My daughter, I have a 11-year-old daughter. And when she was real little, I was thinking of a song to sing her to sleep, and I sang the gnome, which goes, I want to tell you a story about a little gnome. That when it goes like that. And we memorized the song, and she loves that song. She can even sing it today. It's a great song to sing I guess, to my daughter to get her to go to sleep. And the idea behind it, Grimble Grumble out in the woods and doing his thing, and so I don't know. I think that he had an ability to connect in magical ways through his music. And again, salute you, Sid Barrett, and all the other psychedelic musicians that we mentioned. Thank you for the great music. Okay, and let us know what you think about the views that we've expressed. You may have a different opinion or something you'd like to add. Maybe there's somebody we didn't mention. Please put it in the comment below. Until next time, from the Panavox channel, take care.